Our guest today is a Vancouver-based writer, director, performer, and longtime educator whose work is rooted in story, resilience, and reinvention. Inspired by a lineage of strong Indo-Fijian women, especially her trailblazing mother, a pioneer in special education, Ragini brings a sharp outsider's lens to everything she creates, infusing her work with humor, empathy, and bold honesty. After a fulfilling career as a teacher and school leader, she took a leap into the creative world, only to be sidelined by a serious back fracture and concussion. The long, often solitary road to recovery became its own transformation. Emerging with renewed purpose, she wrote and directed the award-winning short film All Kinds of Weather, developed the feature Good Marriage Material, and embraced stand-up comedy, performing at Vancouver's Fringe Festival, Yuck Yucks, and more. She's voiced a reoccurring character on PBS Kids' Skillsville, narrated for Audible, created the documentary The Comedy Doula, and contributed to the devised theater production Heirlooms and Baggage. Ragini continues to blend storytelling with service, recently teaching English to newcomers to Canada, and cherishes her newest role as grandma to 3 fierce little girls. And she's still saying yes. Hello, Ragini Kapil. Welcome to halfbetty.
Was that me? Oh my gosh.
Wow. That was amazing.
On a day-to-day, I sure don't feel like that person that you just described is me. But that was incredible. Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's you. It's kind of wild to hear it back like that, isn't it?
Yes, because honestly, I always feel like, oh, I can't do that. Like, listen to that person. They've done so much. But when you list it down, that sounds pretty cool.
Or list it up.
List it up. Yeah.
List it up.
List it up. List it up. I like that.
What a beautiful introduction.
So glad you are here. It's taken a hot minute to get you in the seat, but we are just so grateful that you're here, and we can't wait for our listeners to learn more about you.
Krista, that was beautiful. What an introduction. Certainly, Ragini didn't make it difficult to be able to introduce her with everything that you have done, Ragini, and everything that you've accomplished.
And all that there is in the future.
Everything you have left to do. Lift it up. This is such a big, this is part of it. Words are everything.
Words are everything.
I really loved that reframe because it is about moving forward as opposed to backwards, or moving up instead of down. That's such an interesting way to start this off. Ragini, one of the things that we love to do with our guests when we first introduce them and we hear a little bit about their amazing journeys so far is that we really love to start with a grounding of words. Tell us any number of words that you believe truly describe who Ragini is.
So I've been listening to your podcast, so I knew this was coming. My first word is resilient. That never changes. It's resilient. But the second word was an I. What is it? What is it? It's irreverent. Irreverent.
Yes, it is.
And then the third word is compassionate. The fourth word, authentic. It's authentic.
Yes.
And the last word, which I think has impacted my life and others around me, is visionary. And that's a tough word to use for yourself because it's very powerful. And sometimes it imbues a bigger picture of yourself than you want to share, but I'm owning it.
Beautiful.
Yes, you are. Oh, those are
Beautiful.
All really, really good.
How moving it is to hear people's expressions of their story, the words that they find truly express who they are. And I appreciated so much, and I saw Krista nodding too. I really love body language that also expresses how we're feeling when we're listening to somebody, but you can really see when something is moving because people lean in and they nod and they smile. So when you started with resilient and then you said, this one is never changing. I'm giving myself see, like, I see it, but I'm giving myself goosebumps because you said with conviction that resilient is not one that is going to change. It doesn't waver. This is a foundational...
It's a truth.
Expression, a truth. I love that, Krista. That's so lovely. So with those in mind and with us moving into your story, we would really appreciate if you would take us to a time that you believe was a catalyst of change, of transformation, of a new path forward, of a new way of seeing things, of anything that has been experienced in the last number of years in this midlife part of your life journey.
Ideally, I would start at when I was 52, I think.
Perfect.
But I actually need to rewind that tape because growing up in Vancouver, being very much, as I say, the brown egg in a box of whites, we were very early immigrants. I think we might have been amongst the first Fijian Indian families to move to Canada or even to BC. I know we were the first in Nelson. I'm not going to rewind that far, but just to grow up with nobody that's like you, nobody that feels like you. I think it's a common feeling with a lot of people, but I very definitely felt like a chameleon and being dropped into a family that really wasn't mine and always wishing for something else. And it was so strange when at the age of 21, I remember deciding that I would be positive, not negative, that I would look forward, not back, that I would seize my future and make it happen. It was the first time I took advantage of my culture and asked my parents, who couldn't have been more shocked, to arrange my marriage. Because my deep heart's aim was to be a wife and a mother. And it happened. And I married my husband 6 weeks after we met in 1984. We're still together. And our life is enhanced because of that decision that I made as a Canadian growing up here. I can't emphasize to you enough what a departure that was for me as a person growing up. So that was the first time.
Hold on. That happened when you were 21?
That's a big story, but basically, yeah.
Wow.
And then I'm the youngest of three. I got my brother and my sister to get on board, and we all had very similar kinds of arrangements. And unfortunately, and this will figure into my story a little bit later, my brother's wife passed away. She dealt with cancer for a very long time, but she was somebody that seized life and lived it, from jumping out of planes and climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. She was an amazing person and just this wonderful influence on my life. And now fast forward to the real story. I was working as
That is a real story. That is a beautiful real story.
Did you want to share her name?
Her name was Vina. And we just passed the 10th anniversary of her death. And it was a big moment for us because she was such a big influence on our family and we miss her.
Yeah. Yeah. That's okay. It's okay. You can take a second. It's all right. Yeah.
And I think it's such a beautiful way to enhance and add context for everybody, all our listeners. A story doesn't happen by itself. A story doesn't live alone. A story is made up of all the moments, all the exchanges. And so Vina is part of the story just as much as anybody else, which is why it's so lovely to hear about her.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. And so let's go to around the time that I was in my early 50s and working as a school principal. And it's a very draining job. And I'd had a few things happen that were so strange. What would you do if you were in a situation like somebody's got a gun on you? So I had that situation where somebody was across from the school on their balcony and he was waving this gun, and it turned out to be an air gun, but I didn't know that. My job was to get people to be safe. And I was brand new at the school and I didn't even know the school's address, and I was calling 911. There's a guy with the gun and he's waving it and pointing it at me. And I turned around and kept people safe for a 3-hour lockdown, and afterwards meeting with the police and the district. It was a crazy experience, but what I know is if I'm faced with a situation like that, I will stay calm and keep people safe. And then I'll fall apart later. And I still remember how traumatized everybody was and how I just went, okay, everybody, this is what we're going to do now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Over the PA to keep everybody calm. So that really stuck with me. And it was kind of a tough school to be at. And in 1 week, my dad was in a coma. My father-in-law unexpectedly passed away. And there we started this year of being in a new school with this situation happening. And I was sinking, was not thriving. And every Thursday, I would go to improv. And in improv, I was more me than I had ever been in my life. I have lifelong friends from 2015 who joined that improv with me. But back in 2010, this was a life-saving activity for me. And it allowed me to explore a person that I had kept very deeply hidden. And that is my creative persona. And really the core of my being is to be free and to be creative and to laugh and just say whatever comes out of my mouth. And it had never happened before. And the funniest thing happened. I went to Fan Expo. I was going to support our improv teacher. And there somebody convinced me to quit my job and become a screenwriter. And this is the most bizarre thing. So by that time, my sister-in-law was really near the end of her life. And I had a chance to tell her, hey, I am going to leave my job and become a screenwiter. And it was like,
oh my gosh.
the real moment.
Cheering you on.
Just cheering me on. And then I knew the story I was going to write. It was about a little girl in my school who had such resilience. Her name is Muskan. That means smile in Hindi. And she was born with a cardiomyopathy. And by all accounts, she shouldn't be here, but she was the youngest person in the world to come to school with a battery-operated heart. It's called a ventricular assist device, and it was my job to keep her alive and to make sure that nobody cut the wire to her backpack. But I'd also bring her parents into my office and write her story. Okay, I'm going to write this story. And then that's how I ended up taking this 12-month intensive screenwriting program. And in the meanwhile, unfortunately, in saying yes, I will take this field trip out to see these kids at camp. And on the way back, the boat went over a big swell and I fell and fractured my back. Life-changing fracture. So that whole year I was at screenwriting school and I started advocating for my own needs at that time, like by standing up when I needed to or moving or doing whatever to accommodate myself, which is something I had never done.
Okay, so take me back. So 21, you were like, I'm going to be positive. Hey, parents, set me up with a good husband. That's what I want. Then I'm assuming you went to school, university. You became a teacher first and then a principal?
Yes. I never planned on being a principal. I wanted to get my master's because I wanted to have my dad be proud of me. And I hadn't graduated from high school. I didn't pass my first few years of university because he made me take economics and statistics and accounting. And so my education was very sporadic and atypical. And then in my 30s with my 2 kids and teaching, I decided I would do my master's because I really wanted to write papers. I was 36 years old, and I think it's the first time I heard my dad say, I'm so proud of you.
At 36.
At 36, I was invited to teach students at UBC. So I taught in the teacher ed program for a couple of years at UBC. And that's how I came back to teaching. Then I got pushed into being an administrator. And when I say visionary, I do apply it to me being a principal because I was able to infuse this idea of creating successful citizens for the 21st century and how every child was responsible for that. Why are you coming to school? I want to be a successful citizen in the 21st century, right? Not a career. We don't know what they're going to work at. We don't know what their aim is, but let's be a productive citizen. And so we worked on greeting people, making eye contact. I have a 3-afternoon program where I instill this sense of leadership and a sense of belonging. We drill down words with grade 6s and find out what are their words? What are they going to live by? Then what are the actions that they're going to do that show that? And then what are the responsibilities they'll take on in their school within their group as leaders to exemplify their goals? And boy, oh boy, does that ever change school culture. And teachers get on board. If you validate that, what's your role? What are you doing here? We're creating successful citizens, productive citizens for the 21st century. Well, that's visionary.
It certainly is. I would have loved to have been in that school, whether it was a student or a teacher or janitor. How long were you in that position for? And also, where does this leadership come from?
So I was asked to leave Brownies 3 times because I would redirect everybody to play tag or do whatever I wanted. And I was a very good leader at the time. And then when I went to boarding school in England when I was 17, you become an adult at 18 in England. And the headmistress saw a leader in me. And so she's the one who really channeled that leadership into a positive kind of effect. I opened the cooking room and taught people to bake, and the sewing room and taught people to sew, and just got to be a leader.
How long were you a principal for?
So technically, I was a vice principal from 2003 to 2006 in Surrey. And then I was, I believe, the first female South Asian elementary school principal in Delta in 2006. And I fractured my back and went on a leave in 2015. And then I came back in 2016. And then I had this concussion. So that was sort of the end of it.
So
wow, these are
to
definitely
dig into that a little bit, because we kind of breezed over it a couple times here, and I don't want to miss this because Andrew was welcoming you and inviting you to speak about a transformative moment. You've had many, but this one in particular, I'm really curious about. Can you tell us a little bit more? You said you were on a field trip with your school and you were in a boat.
Yeah. But it's 2 different things. I fractured my back in 2015 in June, and it took a long time to heal. It was hard for me because I always felt I had this plate of pain in my back. So in 2016, let's skip over that I had taken the year off for writing because that was already planned. I got through it. I managed. But when I came back in September of 2016, a year later, I had so much pain and also trauma. I kept thinking, and I couldn't get it out of my head, that somebody was going to push me over. I couldn't walk down the hall. I was always fearful of re-injuring myself. And I remember a time when the assistant superintendent came to visit, and I'd had a kid who had done something violent, and I hadn't filled in the threat assessment. And she said, "That's not like you." And she showed me such compassion, and I ended up going on a leave. So I'm at home now, and my kids are gone. My husband's working. Nobody really sees what's happening, right? And so a couple of months later in March, I had the flu. I had a high fever, and I ended up fainting, and I fell into a tile edge of a tub and then into the tub.
Oh, gosh.
I don't know that because I was unconscious. The ambulance came. I ended up at the hospital. I was very dehydrated, so they put 2 IVs of saline solution and gave me this handout and sent me on my way. I had no idea what was happening. I was ill. I was confused. And all I know is life changed completely. So because it wasn't really dealt with, I got locked into what they call post-concussion symptoms. It's not a syndrome anymore, it's symptoms. And over the next few months, I tried to find out what is wrong with me. I can't go out. It gave me such an amazing understanding of kids and people with sensory issues. I couldn't hear conversations. I couldn't go, what is that waiter saying to me? I would just panic. I couldn't recognize people. That's one I still have, is that people are blank to me until they talk to me or their face will refocus. And I'm like, oh, it's you. But now I'll tell people, hey, if I don't say hi, it's because I have no facial recognition, and move on. Big deal, right? At that time, I just actually wanted to be not here. Had serious depression and nobody knew what to do with me. And my neighbor fell on her head, and we're talking on the street one day, and she said she was going to this place called Back in Motion. Because I was still on a leave, they said, okay, you can go for a month. So 4.5 months later, I got my life back. I went 3 times a week, as much as I could handle. And I remember I would refuse to do the gratitudes. I have nothing. Now, this is me being really positive. I have nothing to be grateful for. I am a broken person and I don't want to be here. And the OT said to me, okay, great. If you're not going to do them, this whole thing is going to end. Your insurance will not keep paying for you to come here unless you do this. So I started doing the gratitudes very grudgingly, and it changed my life. You have to find gratitude. I woke up. And it actually changed what I think. Some people say the cup is half empty. Some people say the cup is half full. I'm like, I have a cup. And everything changed. So instead of taking the road less traveled or the fork in the road, I look at my feet. And this is where I am today. And it's a good place because it might be the same as yesterday. It might not be as far as I want to go tomorrow, but it's right here. I have feet. I'm here. Look at my feet, right? And I don't know why that worked for me, but it really did. Like, just look at my feet. There I am. And so I just kept working forward from that. And I have a friend, an amazing lady who just saw me, not seeing me out. She said, I'm going to take you to comedy classes. I'm like, I can't. Are you kidding me? I can't be in public. Anyway, she convinced me that this would be a safe place to go. And it was funny because Jan Bannister, whom I later made a film about because I think her work is so life-changing. So when I went to this class, I said to Kat, you have to go with me. It's Jan Bannister. Jan Bannister's doing this class and I'm scared. And when I went to introduce myself, she said, oh, I remember you. You're the one with the head injury.
Oh my gosh.
And
wow.
That thing was so nerve-wracking. I would quit every week. I'd say, I'm not going back. I'm not going back. And somehow I would go back. And it was funny because I had talked about it with my representatives from the insurance company here. And they're like, no, we know how hard you work. That's the resiliency. I never gave up, right? They knew I was trying so hard to get my life back, to be myself, a new self, whoever this was. And unfortunately, after that class, when their head office found out that's what I was doing, they just cut my insurance. And long story short, again, I retired. And ever since then have been making this forward process, the progress on my own. And COVID happened. So everybody's on their own now. And I was feeling lost. And what do I do? I'm not working. I feel like I'm contributing here, right? And I had this, again, transformational conversation with a lady named Casey Clarkson, who runs the screen acting school here. It's an online thing. And I remember walking up and down and crying. And she's like, well, what do you want to do? I want to write. I want to direct. I want to move. I was not living where I wanted to live. I want to create. I want to share. I want to be a speaker. I want to help other people to change. I want to find the joy. And I did.
You make it sound so simple and so easy and so positive. Hey friends, have you heard about Loba? If you take vitamins or supplements, you need to. Loba is this new, beautifully designed smart pill organizer that looks gorgeous in your space and is made to fit your life. It connects to Wi-Fi via the Loba app, where you set daily reminders for when it's time to take your pills. Loba then lights up in the color you've chosen for it to glow. It's designed to tap into the power of visual cues and ease mental load while contributing to better health and wellness. Plus, it's female-founded. Okay, now for the good part. They are offering halfbetty subscribers 10% off. Select your Loba pill and supplement organizer at shoploba.com using our exclusive discount code halfbetty, one word in all caps, at checkout. Again, that's code halfbetty for 10% off at shoploba.com. And be sure to give them a follow on Instagram at shop.loba.
The happiest, most joyful people I know are often the people that have been through hell, right? In their own lives, whether it's relationship or family history. So many people were abused when they were kids, and they've just shown this resiliency and strength. Aging is not fun physically, but if you just approach your life every day with, look at my feet. Look at here I
my
am.
feet. I have a cup.
I have a cup.
I wrote that down. I wrote that down. I have a cup.
I have a cup. And, there's this thing about inclusion, right? I don't know if you've seen this. It's Kids Against Offense. And it was like they have two boxes. And so if the one kid, at the end of the day, if they can all stand on a different box, they can all see over the fence. It's an old thing they use with, workshops and things. And it keeps morphing. They keep changing it. The last version I saw, they took away the fence.
Wow. That's a big movement. That's a big,
right?
Right.
Now we all see we don't need a box. We don't need to be included. We're automatically seeing the game. We're automatically included. And I think, we talk about inclusion. I'm going to just touch on this for a moment. When I grew up, I thought I was Canadian. It's the only country I've bonded with. It's the only country I've lived in. In grade 4, the teacher pulled down a map. We were going to study India. And she said, "Where's your family from?" I said, "Nelson, BC. Yeah. I wasn't being facetious, right? My mom was Fijian Indian, born in Fiji, but Indian. My dad was Indian. My older brother and sister were born in Fiji. I was born on a trip to India. I came here when I was 1. At the time, we were called East Indian because of Columbus. And then later, we were called Indo-Canadian. And then BIPOC. So BIPOC is a really interesting term because it's Black, Indigenous, people of color. But you're not blank, right? You're kind of pinkish.
It's a pretty broad term. Is that what you mean?
It's broad, but it's just a really funny term, a way of othering all the time. But I've never been okay with being othered. I want to be included. I want that fence to be taken away. And yet I myself just said I was the first South Asian female principal elementary school in Delta to show how slowly progress is made.
I'm curious as to how you're bringing all of that into your life now, because it feels like you are spending a lot of time making sure that you're sharing your stories and you're sharing your experiences and you're writing. And I'm really curious what that shift was and how much more you're opening yourself up to now and sharing with others.
I've had some big realizations in the last few years. When I did my screenwriting class, there was a guy in there, a couple of them. And on the very first day, we were introducing ourselves to the teachers. And I would say, "Oh, my name is Ragini." And I hated my name. And I'm like, "Well, everybody calls me Ragini. But like my family and people who know me call me Ragini." Now, I don't say Ragini like my mom, right? But Ragini. Ragini comes from a raga. It's a ragini. It's a type of melody. It's not a rag, right? Ragini. So different. So since that time, I've made it my name. and it is my name, and I love it. And I will have my mouth frozen like anything at the dentist, and they'll mispronounce my name, and I'll, because I'm not going to be a rag, right? But
No.
I think one of my oldest friends had said to me, when did you all of a sudden become Indian? And I realized that I had worked so hard on hiding myself, hiding my food, my culture. I don't know. The part of the problem is, as early immigrants, we came in 1962. We didn't know. My parents were educated in India, Fiji, and New Zealand. They didn't have any like common kind of uh, um, festivals and things. There wasn't a community here to join. They built the community. And so we went to Sunday school. I knew the Bible. I knew fairy tales and all of that, but I didn't know my own like cultural stories. And so it's not that I was hiding being Indian, it's that I didn't really feel comfortable in any culture. I didn't learn to speak Hindi till I met my husband, whose family speaks Punjabi, but I spent a lot of time in India learning the culture, getting to know his family. And I had a different kind of viewpoint than I think most people did. I felt like I married a family. I didn't feel like it's just my husband and me.
Would you imagine that through your entire life, but when we're thinking about perhaps the last 15 or 20 years, it feels as though as a listener to your story, there's this cadence of a moment where you saw something getting in your way, something that happened, an experience or a physical impediment or something with your health or an experience of loss or whatever it might be. But I've recognized that through these experiences, you seem to do this beautiful Ragini practice whereby you take the experience and you don't dismiss it. So you don't just try and push it away and make it not so. A concussion is a concussion and it's so difficult. And there are so many things that people don't realize that happen with a concussion. A back injury is chronic, potentially life-changing, forevermore, that will affect you in some ways moving forward, the loss of a family member, whatever it is. But it feels as though there's this beautiful approach where you have these experiences and you don't sit in your own pity of why me or why did this happen, but you acknowledge it and you allow yourself to be sad or to be a little bit lost. And then something starts to happen. And going back to your 5 words, all of them start to find their way into what you then do. So your resilience, of course, is consistent. As you said, that never moves. Your irreverence. So irreverence showing up in this kind of baby rebel where you don't take what is probably what everybody, oh, look, see, irreverence. Did you see that for our listeners?
I want to do that.
Well, you're going to.
How do you make that happen?
But for our listeners, there was just a giant explosion of confetti because they loved what Ragini is saying and they loved irreverence. But your irreverence comes in because you say, I'm going to do things differently. I'm not going to do what everybody else says that I need to do. And then your compassion is just all the way through because all you do is look at not only compassion for yourself, which is important. It's so important to be compassionate for ourselves, but the compassion in all those around you, those students who have challenges, those kids that need somebody to lead them differently. This young girl that you wrote the story about who had the first battery-operated heart, keeping her alive. Your family, your children, your extended family, and then your authenticity just shines through everything because once again, you acknowledge who you are, the brown egg in the box of white eggs, You acknowledge your uniqueness in just being you, not that you are Indo-Fijian, not that you are born of parents that came from, we're all born of parents that came from somewhere. So you live in this beautiful, authentic spot, and then you vision what it looks like moving forward. Your vision, to me, is so incredibly inspiring as we sit here as women in our midlives, navigating major change. And with that, what allows us all to be able to gather in a community is being able to sit in that place of creating the vision of what is to come and knowing that others are doing the same and that we can relate to one another. So I saw your words, which I did write down, Krista. I hope you didn't hear me writing. I muted myself, but I did write down those words and they just yelled out to me as you were sharing all these various stories that have really shaped where you are today with your feet on the ground just today in this moment on your 100th day of Live Well.
Holding your cup.
Holding your cup. Oh,
So I wanted to add, I think that's an incredible encapsulation of everything that I stand for, that I strive for, that I believe. It took me a long time, and I have had a lot of counseling or therapy, but it takes a lot to let go of that. You don't even realize how much trauma sits in your body. And there is a physical manifestation of that, which is probably explained by some of the issues that I've had over the years. But right now, I'm at a place where in any room that I go to, I go in as myself. This is me, right? I might not be your cup of tea. I have been told my laugh is way too loud. And I've heard this so many times. I knew she was there. I heard her laugh, right? And I love that. It's a beautiful feeling to laugh. And so I don't restrain my laugh. I now allow that boisterous aspect of me to come out. And if I can't find a word or if I don't recognize somebody, I don't panic. I say, sorry, this is something I have a challenge with, or I'm looking for that word, I can't find it, or whatever. And then I feel that tension leaving my body, right?
At what point did that change for you? Was it a gradual shift or was it an age you turned? Was it a moment that you experienced?
Yeah, it's only happened in the last few years, I would say post-COVID even, where I started envisioning these things happening and getting to read an audiobook, getting to book a series where I am an animated character that is on that series. What a dream come true. So when you actually see yourself accomplishing things, I mean, even when I reached out to you, like part of me says, what do I have to offer? I've got these stellar people on their podcast. What on earth can I say that would equal somebody else? But I do think that having that self-talk, it doesn't matter what it is, whether you're talking to a family member with a little bit more confidence. And I always tried to please people so that you will like me, right? And that you won't judge me. Like, oh, I want you to like me. And so I let myself be a little bit too much of a willow, and my tree was pretty well bowed down. And then I realized it would be better if I continued to try to please people, but that I just did what pleased me. And that sort of let the cat out of the bag, because I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be a writer. Yes, I'm going to do stand up. And
I am a writer. I am a
yeah.
comedian. I am these things. Yeah.
I am. And I am. And I can't let us stop talking until I talk about my mom. Because my mom, her dad was a visionary who did huge work in Fiji, and he ended up dying in a plane crash when she was 21. She was at school in New Zealand becoming a nurse when they were informed of the news that her dad had died in a plane crash. And Air New Zealand and the governments of New Zealand and Fiji flew her and her sister back to Fiji. Her dream was to be a nurse, and she ended up becoming a teacher and a special ed teacher. And I think about it because I've written her story, and it was represented in our devised theater play, Heirlooms and Baggage. But my mom, at 21, lost her dad, married my dad when she was 22, had 3 children, came to Canada as the first Fijians family in BC, in Nelson, in 62, when she had 3 small kids, right? 1, 3, and 5, and started this new life. And she was an innovative special ed teacher who believed in 100% success. So when she saw me sinking at high school, she thought, you know what? I had a great time in boarding school. Maybe she will too. And sent me. And throughout my life, and even to this day, she remains as an inspiration. She does her yoga. She's always working on her health. My husband calls her our gardener because she will come and take care of the garden. And she's just so supportive of what I'm doing now. And it means the world to me. So I really wanted to just put her in there if possible, and just give her the honor that she deserves for being not only inspirational to me, but so many children she's worked with.
Thank you for sharing about your mom. It will hit home for everybody, whether we have our moms with us, whether we have our moms maybe not who we hoped they would be, but mother figures. There's a resonance in generations. And when we were starting halfbetty, and when I was writing what halfbetty could be, it was about the inspiration of Betty White, who was 100 years old when I turned 50. So she was a woman of a different generation. When I wrote the pitch, I also included being a mom myself and having 2 daughters who are such an enormous inspiration in my life. And also thinking about my own mom. And then as Krista joined very quickly thereafter and became the half of halfbetty, in all of her ways, then Krista brought the layers of being a mom, of having a mom, and of understanding how important collectively generational inspiration is. And we knew as we started building Betty that a big part of what halfbetty wants and needs and will become is a community of generations of women. So it will be our moms in their 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond. And it will be our generation of women in their midlives, 40s, 50s, 60s. And it will be young women, girls, teenagers moving into those early adult years. My girls, 19 and 22, right in the midst of that younger generation, needing and wanting the wisdom of our generation. And likewise, us wanting the wisdom and the stories and all of those words that describe our moms and their generation. So that was a beautiful way to highlight how important all the generations of women are and how we are building a community. We're starting with our midlife generation, but wildly rippling that out to include all women and how important we all are together. So thank you for sharing about your mom. And I would love to ask her name because it's always important for me to know people's names.
My mom's name is Jian Na.
Jian, a beautiful name.
Yes. And I wanted to say too that this time in our world is really difficult for women in many nations to be seen, to be heard, to be valued, to be validated for the contributions that we make to the world, to ourselves, to each other. I I see my kids, and they're both parents, and how they navigate through that, and just how strong and resilient my daughter-in-law and my son, they had something called TFMR, a termination for medical reasons. And they have turned that into nearly being activists to allow people to mourn the loss of unborn children. And my daughter-in-law, when we think about it, it's just so amazing, the strength that she's had to show. And when they've shared their story, we find out there are so many other people who have suffered in silence, and also men who are just expected to suck it up and carry on, right? And I think that the roles that we have expected of women and men over the years has been changed and massaged, and nobody really knows, like, what am I supposed to do? What's my role here? And older people might say, well, you're the woman, you need to do this. And we're like, no, we're human beings and we multitask and we're capable of running the world. We can all do something. And we hope that it's something that contributes to our lives and to people around us. And I think that's where I'm at now with this strength. This is what's right for me. This is what I'm going to do. And because I know my motivation, and I do know most of my 5 words, know it's coming from a good place. And I'm never setting out to hurt somebody or put somebody down. Everybody has something to work on. And being funny is sometimes really a good way to release tension.
Mm-hmm. And now you're doing that in your writing, your plays, your films. Can you tell us just a little bit more about that and where you're going now with your work?
Yeah. I have a dream that my mom will see a feature film of mine on screen. And I really want to persevere to have my stories get traction and to be shown. And 10 years ago, before Wakanda, before The Farewell, before Crazy Rich Asians, my stories were very fresh and new. And it's just amazing. But I want to not only get some of my movies on screen and find out how to do that.
You're writing and you're submitting and you're sharing your stories, and I guess your approach is to write from what you know and what you've experienced. And the hope is to share those stories so that others will relate to them.
And the connection to your mom. Yeah.
Yes. The dreams don't stop with what I have. The dreams stop with what you think you are capable of, like being on a podcast or going into schools and changing culture, doing workshops. I was in a school recently and I helped this teacher change her approach to kids so that her classroom would be an inclusive and galvanized place and not like worksheet centered. And that gave me a lot of joy. So, I feel like I've accomplished what even more than I had ever imagined I could. That's really heartening for me that I got to read an audiobook, that I'm on this series, that I've been part of a play, but there's so much more.
There's so much more. Oh, I feel it. I feel it. And every time I speak with you, there's always another story. There's always a connection or a moment. But what I love about you the most is your positivity and the love and the passion that you have behind you that drives you forward all the time. Asking for what you want. My mom and I have been talking a lot about how important it is to stand up for yourself and to ask for what you want. And I think for so many years, she's spent her entire life doing for others. Always, what can I do that will help someone else move forward or that will help care for somebody else? Don't worry about me. And now she's changed her mindset. And much like you, there's been moments in her life that have turned the page or turned around the corner and seen something for herself that's impacted her so deeply that has made her understand that it's okay to ask for things that you need, that you want. Why not? why wouldn't we do that? I feel like there's a new generation that's building with my generation, but also with hers, because now we can share and have these conversations and go for it. Like, we shouldn't have to put a cap just because we talk about this a lot with halfbetty. It's like, oh, you turn 50 and, oh, well, that's it. You're done. And it's not the case. It's not what we experience. It's not what we're seeing. It's the women that we're talking to, in fact, are completely opposite. Take you, for example. I'm looking at my mom. I tell her all the time, ask for what you want. Okay, I'm going to ask for what I want. Okay, Krista. And she takes a big breath and she's like, I would like, she just asks for something. And I'm like, oh, that's so easy. I can do that for you or with you. Hey friends, Krista here. Andrea and I are thrilled to offer an exclusive discount to our halfbetty subscribers. We've fallen in love with our Chelsea boots from Bose & Co. They're soft, breathable, and handcrafted with 100% vegan, eco-friendly materials. As stylish as they are planet-friendly, this Canadian-founded brand proves you don't have to sacrifice style for sustainability. Featured in Vogue, Cosmo, Glamour, and Forbes, Bose & Co. is offering our halfbetty subscribers 50% off. You're welcome. Find the link in our show notes.
I think, having that freedom after you're 50. I have asked so many people lately, and I mean it. What's your dream? There are two of my classmates from high school that have become artists, and you never knew that they had this talent within them. And all of a sudden, they're painting, and it's like, what? Right? And my grandchildren, Louise is 6, and Ada's going to be 2 tomorrow, and Naya's going to turn 1 next week. And Naya's my daughter's daughter, and Louise and Ada are my son and his wife George's children. And they are being brought up to be such strong people. My husband takes Louise out every week for dinner. It's just amazing, the conversations they have. And she was talking about skating or something. And then he says, oh, do you know who else skates? And she said, Amma. That's me, I'm Amma. And he said, yeah, how did you know? She said, Amma's good at everything. And you know what? I don't feel that I am, but I love that she thinks so.
So beautiful.
Yeah. It was like, oh my God, I'm not sure it was actually a compliment, but it was just like, yeah, Amma's good at everything. And then that means she can be too. There's no door close to her. I do feel that this idea that people have, call it what you will, manifesting, believing in yourself, going for it. When you actually set out to do something and you believe it can happen, you can make it happen.
You have always been passionate about creating your stories, and you have had other chapters that had you not directly doing the thing, but you found a way to weave it in. And it reminded me of what we've found in many of the conversations that we've been in with women and with people. And that is what we do as children and what we find that we love, that we're drawn to if we have time in moments where we're not in school or we're not distracted. The thing that we go and do is what is our red thread through our lives. And we will find a way, often, though we lose sight of it sometimes, to weave that thing back into whatever it is that we're doing. And so when you're describing this desire to really help inspire people to follow their dream, really what their dream is whatever it is that they loved when they were that child, whatever it is that they found themselves doing. And I'm remembering a very short little film that I was shared, and it resonated for so many years. It was a band room in a school with an entire group of young students on their instruments. And they were in session, and there was a boy on the drums, and there was another little boy playing a trumpet. And then there were all the other children on all their instruments. And they all finished playing, they put down their instruments, and they all got up and left out of the classroom, except for the boy on the trumpet, who put down his trumpet and he walked over and he sat behind the drum set. And nobody's in the classroom now, and he started drumming. And he wasn't that great. It didn't have all the rhythm that the boy that had been playing them had, but he was in his place. He was vibrant. The moral of the story is he was really good on that trumpet. And that's why he was playing it, was because he was really good at it. But did he love it? He didn't. He loved the drums. And it wasn't until he walked over to the drum kit and sat down after the band had left that he found that's exactly where he wanted to be. And so for me, I've always carried that story of when I find myself doing the things that I'm good at and that I can do. And perhaps it's even because this is financially something that you can actually do and it can do well for you. But if I do that thing and it's because I'm good at it and I don't love it, it will take me down a path of losing myself. And it's when I come back to what do I love? And I might not be the best at it yet, but what do I love? And where do I show up fully myself as that child who loved to do all the things that I did? That's when I feel complete and clear, and I feel authentic, and I feel irreverent, and I feel completely engaged. And so I love your full circle story of coming back to what children, us as children, the children that we're raising, our grandchildren, what is it that they love and where do they show up completely themselves? You know, Krista's boys, your granddaughters, my daughters, where do we see them when they are happiest? And how do we help all of them continue to find that place? And how do we help ourselves in midlife re-find what we loved as children? And not to shy away from it, and not to be told that you're not great at that. I don't care if I'm not great yet. I love it so much.
Sometimes it's a matter of permission, I find.
I agree, Krista.
Whether yourself or someone else turning to you and say, wait a minute, you're really great at that, or why don't you try it, or come back again.
Yeah. Or keep going.
Yeah.
Keep doing it. Mm-hmm. Because when you're doing it, you're so happy.
Mm-hmm. I have a goosebump response to that because it was the perfect story.
So I think it is a really valid point to recognize that we all have our own unique experiences, our own stories, and therefore our own way of connecting with others. And it's not going to be that you can just use an approach and have it be copy paste and work with every single person. It goes a long way to be coming from a place of compassion and feeling as though what we are doing is the success of others and the joy of others is part of what the reflection is of who we are. The other part is our own joy and our own success. And I think that's the piece in halfbetty that is slightly sensitive, because for many of us in our generation, it's hard to move from a place of always just being for others and finding a way to not only advocate for oneself, but to use a language that's very unfamiliar, which is to speak highly of ourselves and to celebrate ourselves. Even saying it makes me uncomfortable. And that is where I recognize that many women in our generation and in our mother's generation, so difficult to have that self-compassion and advocacy for ourselves. We're often very good at doing everything for everybody else and being something for everybody else. We can always improve in that space, but where the improvement really is needed is in our own space for ourselves. And that's what I hope that by hearing from you, Ragini, and from all the others that we're talking with and that we're having the opportunity to hear from, that's the space that will start to grow for women, celebration of who we are and what we're capable of and what we can be for ourselves and therefore for others.
Whew.
Oh my
All right.
gosh.
Well, mic drop on that.
Yeah, I feel so. And yet I still want to say more. I feel like that was such a great button to end on. So I'm going to put a little, what do you call that? Not a summary, it's like a little codicil or a,
I love these words. Yes, keep going.
When you grow up feeling othered or with low self-esteem, when people tell you, no, you can't do that, you don't have that in you, oh, you are nothing. A lot of us grow up with this kind of trauma of being pushed down. And sometimes we don't even need somebody else to push us down. We will listen to the world and push ourselves down. I can't do that. This is my life. I remember when I was leaving being a principal and a man was saying to me, why are you doing this? Why? And I said, because I want to accomplish something. I haven't accomplished anything yet. And he stood back and he looked at me and he said, I can't believe you're a principal saying that to me, that you haven't accomplished anything. But I felt it. I felt that was my work. I was passionate. I wasn't somebody that came to a 9 to 5. I worked 16 hours a day because I wanted the schools to be something that I would be proud of. So the commitment was there. The vision was there. The work was there. But the dream that I had was tamped so far down that I didn't even recognize it for a long time. Even though I would be like making movies and doing all of that, I didn't get to do that much as a principal. So I really started missing it. But now the thing that stands in my way or anybody's way is feeling like, I can't do that. That I'm not good enough for that. They won't see me. They don't want me. They want somebody younger. Who am I to think that I can go and do that thing? And then to flip that whole lens and go, well, if I never try, I'll never find out.
Yeah.
I have to.
That's right.
I have to put myself out there. I'll take this class. I will write. I will produce. I'll put myself out there and silence the negative voice that lives somewhere in here that says, no, you can't. Because I want my granddaughter to grow up and say, well, she did it. My grandma did it. I can do it too.
Yes.
Right? And to keep that. One of the things I've always thought is like, oh, I never grew up. Why do I keep thinking like a 12-year-old? The irreverence in my approach to life. And I think there are some people that grow old before their time because they think they have to. But I will play with the kids. I will run with them if I can run. I will skip if I can skip. I will slide down a slide if I fit because it's fun. And I want to have that joy. Conception is in your own brain, how you present yourself. So conceive your dream, perceive it, and then live it.
That's right.
My epilogue.
I love
that. Was brilliant. Hearing about the lens in which you look at tomorrow and the next day and next year and what you're going to accomplish and what you're going to do and how you continue to interact with all those around you and your family. And as we share these episodes, we know there's going to be something for everybody in the conversations that we're having. And that's what's so inspiring, is that when we talk to somebody and we hear from somebody, it's not then just to an audience. It's not just to a singular audience. It's not just to a profiled audience. This is the beauty of what we're doing, is that being human means that it's agnostic of any one person or even one gender. Story is a story. Your life story is resonating with anybody else's life story in some way, shape, or form globally. And that's what we love so much about halfbetty, is that it is helping to share that we are all creating stories and therefore we are all the same. So thank you for sharing so many very personal yet very resonating and relatable experiences for everybody. So wildly inspiring and heartfelt and genuine.
I want to thank you, Andrea and Krista, for starting this podcast. And I found out about it before it actually aired. And I just had such respect for you, Krista. I didn't know you, Andrea, but I sure loved our first conversation. That was amazing. So inspiring. And I have watched your trajectory from being like the top rated Apple podcast, like featured on the International Women's Day. Was that right?
Yeah.
And then where you've gone in it and how many countries, like over now, it was 58 the last time I had checked. And then I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. And then I just remembered, how fun it is to talk to you guys. And that's all I concentrated on was just the moment, just being here with you and knowing how authentic you are. And also you really bolstered me up before we started taping. And I think, once again, words are so important. The words we tell ourselves, the words we tell other people. And your words are not just helping me, but they are having a global effect. And it's so exciting. I'm just so proud of you and so happy to know you and so absolutely filled with gratitude that you gave me this opportunity to share my stories and my voice.
Well,
beautiful.
We're so grateful for your time. You really are someone very special and a dear, dear friend. And I know that everyone will want to get to know you as well. Are there ways for our listeners to follow you and your adventures?
Yes, I have a website, which is raginikapil.ca. I am RK Vancouver on Instagram and Facebook. And also I'm on Threads again as RK Vancouver. And I have joined Substack.
I can't wait to hear what you're up to next. Thank you so much for your time. You can find us on halfbetty.com as our website with all of our episodes listed there and all the glorious ways you can learn about our guests and about us, Andrea and I. And we want to hear from you. You can get in touch with us at any time through our website or our Instagram. And we're also on LinkedIn as halfbetty. And we'd be so grateful if you reached out and let us know how we're doing, what you want to hear, if there's a guest that you want to hear from. We're all about that. So let's share the love in our community. Reach out to each other and just keep supporting each other. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye, all.